and welcome to UC Today. My name is Kristian McCann and today's session is Mastering Mobile Control and Compliance with Integrated UC. And joining me to tell me all about it is Lee Essex, SVP Global Sales and Marketing at Tango Networks. Lee, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Kristian. Always a pleasure and an honor.
So let's start from the beginning. How is the rise in mobile use for business communications challenged IT's ability to maintain control?
Good question. I think the shift to mobile working, particularly for the hybrid, frontline and remote staff, has created a significant blind spot for IT. Mobile communications pretty much dominate business workflows now, but these form of communications are happening pretty much over unmanaged consumer-grade networks and devices. People are using the same mobile service that their sons and daughters are using. And the move to mobile is only growing. I think last year the World Economics Forum estimated that by 2026, so only next year, Gen Z is going to make up more than 25% of the global workforce. And let's remember that these are the folks that have grown up with mobile, so it's natural to them. They expect their communications to be mobile first. And essentially, if IT teams are losing visibility over the communications, which they are with siloed mobile communications, they can't enforce policies, they struggle to maintain compliance, and critically, particularly in the modern world, they're losing access to valuable business conversation data. And that's data that could be fed into AI systems for analytics, sentiment, coaching, and compliance. So I guess when mobile is disconnected from the UC platform, it creates a gap in both governance and intelligence. And that's really where IT is really struggling to maintain its control.
You mentioned IT struggling to maintain its control. What are the key technical and operational challenges that IT teams are encountering when trying to manage mobile communications?
Quite a few. I think the key one is compliance risk. Anything that's any calls or messages that are being sent on a siloed communication can't be recorded or archived. And if you're in a business that sits under a regulatory or compliance control, that's kind of key. In fact, it's the law. You've got to do that. But there's other things as well. You lose lack of identity. Personal mobile numbers, which are typically being used, obscure business presence and branding. You've got a poor experience. IT will roll out an OTT, an over-the-top app, but historically they've got a low adoption rate due to quality issues and clunky UX. And I'm not knocking the OTT apps. If I'm sat at my desk, which I am now, and I've got great Wi-Fi coverage, they're great, but the experience is not brilliant. Humans are humans. If I've got to click an app, do an extra 2 clicks to make a call, I'm going to fall back to the easiest way. And the easiest way is the native dialer on my mobile. That's what I know. That's what I use. But then we go back to the communication, the data silos. Mobile interactions, when it's a siloed mobile service, can't be tracked, analyzed, or integrated into the enterprise systems. So again, it's creating huge blind spots where the conversations on unmanaged mobiles are kind of invisible to IT. And if they're invisible to IT, they're invisible to those platforms that they're employing to monitor them, to make analytics, to do some sentiment tracking, or to make automation. So I think there's a lot of key and operational challenges that IT teams are facing by managing mobile communications. Ultimately, if IT can't control it and can't see it, it's going to be unmanaged. And mobile is the last unmanaged communication channel.
You mentioned apps as a way of bringing over control, and you mentioned that there is, they can be good, but there's some pitfalls. So why do you think UC apps, staff employing UC apps on their phone, why is this just not really bringing back this control that IT had really hoped for?
As I said, UC apps are great, but they run over the data channel. And if I'm sat on Wi-Fi, that's great. I'm going to get reliable data, but it becomes unreliable when you're on the move. As sophisticated, particularly in the UK, as our mobile network is, when I'm moving, data can become unreliable. And when I'm in high density areas, mobile data is again difficult. The key thing about an integrated solution like Tango Extend is that it relies on the native mobile. And because it's a voice call, the mobile networks will always give that priority over data session. Data is data. It gets disassembled and reassembled, bits and bytes. And voice is voice. It's got to be real time. But there's also behavioural changes. As I said, most employees are kind of human. They're lazy. And in fact, studies have shown that I think it's about less than 6% of users adopt UC apps for calling. So people tend to get them. IT see the calls happening, but people then tend to fall back to the native dialer. And essentially, a UC app is a bolt-on. It's not an integration. It's something that sits on. And to get real business quality communications that you can monitor, it's got to be natively integrated mobile solutions that don't fall outside of the enterprise's control and outside of, its analytics and reach.
Okay, excellent. And you've mentioned earlier about compliance, lack of insights from the data. I was wondering if you could dig deep into the specific challenges arising from unmanaged mobile communications.
Deeper and several layers. Again, we've touched on this, compliance and legal gaps. If you've no recording or archiving on your mobile communications, you're going to be in breach of any regulatory or compliance obligations that you've got. Again, brand dilution. And one that IT managers tend to overlook, that, if I'm making a call from my personal mobile number, several things happen. One of the first is that if I'm calling somebody and it's an unknown mobile number, they're unlikely to answer it. I don't know about you, but if I get a call from a random mobile number, I tend not to answer it and I let it go to voicemail. If it's from a number that I recognize, typically a fixed line number or a business, I'll answer it. Of course I will. So there's that brand protection. Somebody from my organization is calling a customer and they're presenting a recognizable brand, which is the number that I own. You've got operational inefficiencies as well. There's poor coordination, missed calls. People are missing calls, not returning calls. So that's business opportunities that are being missed, and it's inefficient that people are having to make those additional calls to get through. And also, it adds a shadow IT issue. If organisations are having to take support calls for devices and not within their supported devices, it causes small issues. It's a tiny thing. But again, I'll come back to it in this modern world of IT. It's data fragmentation. If mobile conversations are excluded, they're not going into the CRM or the analytics. And AI, no transcription, no insights, no automation. So in an era where voice is critical to AI, unmanaged mobile means that essentially IT and the business is flying blind.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of issues with not managing your mobile communications. So I suppose the big question is, how can companies manage their mobile communications?
I think it's regaining control and compliance over mobile communications. And the key thing is, without sacrificing the user experience, make it an easy to adopt, no training. It just rolls out so the users know exactly what they're doing. And that's what happens with a platform like Tango Extend. It's intuitive. People know what they're doing. It's not more apps. People just get bored of apps. We've covered that off. So what do we want to do? We want to deliver an experience that's it's native to the experience. The employee hasn't got to learn. They pick up the phone, they make a call. In the modern era now, people don't want to carry around second phones. They want to carry one phone, and most phones now will support dual SIM. We've been a proponent of eSIM for a long, long time. I can take my personal phone, which I do, and I can just add my second secure business line by scanning a QR code and putting a second line on my business, a second business line on my mobile device. The experience is good. I look in my call history, and my personal calls and my business calls are separated very nicely. But the key thing is, by having a native integrated mobile solution, you've got call recording, you've got call routing that's controlled by the enterprise and the UC platform. You've got a singular voicemail. You've got that identity and brand control. IT can put policy enforcement in there. And again, you've got that data capture for analytics. And this gives the business total control and visibility, whilst at the same time the employees are getting a seamless, intuitive experience that they like to use. It's not an app. It's not that 6% that are using them. It's the 94% that are not using the app that are going to use a native service such as Tango Extend.
Okay, and what would you tell IT leaders, UC leaders, what would you tell them that they should do in the year ahead to take advantage of mobile UC in their business?
I think when I speak to a lot of CIOs, CTOs of businesses, I always say, ask yourself 3 questions. Is your mobile integrated or isolated from your UC strategy? Are your mobile communications compliant and secure? And can you capture and analyze mobile calls for insight and AI workflows? If your mobile remains siloed, you're missing data, you're missing visibility, and you're missing opportunity. So I guess my advice is move mobility and mobile first to the heart of your UC strategy. Make it native, make it compliant and AI ready. And again, with platforms like Tango Extend, you don't just enable mobile work, you're unlocking an entire layer of business intelligence, of governance, and customer engagement.
Okay, I think that's a great place to leave it. Lee, thank you very much for taking time to speak to us today.
No problems. As I say, Kristian, always a pleasure and an honor.
And thank you to our audience for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, stay in touch with all our latest videos. So until next time, see you then.